Welcome to Context. I'm Bakhtir Osonov, and we turn our attention to a highly volatile development in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated he doesn't rule out the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, a move he claims could end the conflict between the two countries. This remark comes amid a dangerous escalation. Israel strikes across Iran and Iran's missile volleys in response. World leaders meeting at the G7 summit in Canada have urged restraint, stressing that while Iran must never acquire nuclear weapons, Israel's right to defend itself must also respect international law. At the heart of our discussion lie fundamental questions of international law, morality, and geopolitics. Can Israel justify its actions as a legitimate self-defense? Targeting the supreme leader of a sovereign nation across an irreversible line. To help us unpack these critical issues, I'm joined by two distinguished guests. Gustavo de Aristegui, former diplomat, speaking to us from Rabat, Morocco. He brings us a wealth of experience in international relations and diplomacy. And Melih Demirtas, researcher at Cappadocia University in Ankara, Turkey, an expert on regional security dynamics and international law. Gustavo de Aristegui and Melih Demirtas, welcome to Context. It's a pleasure to have you both on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ambassador de Aristegui, let's begin with you. What do you think? Is Israel's use of force against Iran, particularly its recent airstrikes, compatible with the right of self-defense under international law?
Well, there's a very big line to be made. Your first question was if it was compatible with international law to target the not head of state, because he's not the head of state. He's the leader of the revolution, so technically he is not a part of the statelyhood of Iran, even if he is the constitutionally most important figure in the country. But it's a very complicated thing to understand. In any case, that would be questionable. I think that when a country has been lying about its nuclear capabilities for decades, and even trying to make people believe that since 2003 they had abandoned the military use of nuclear power, and then the international nuclear watchdog has very clearly stated that they had uranium enriched over 60%, and that they even possessed uranium enriched over 90%, well, that is a very serious accusation. Let's be very clear. For civilian use, you only require uranium to be enriched between 2% and 6%. That is very far from 60 and very, very far from 90%. If somebody has enriched uranium to 90%, the only reason is because they want to build a nuclear device. And again, one of the things that I believe is going on is that probably Iran did not have the capacity to miniaturize a bomb and put it in a nuclear head. They already have the vectors. We've seen that they use them with great precision and violence. But and they probably even have the technology to build a bomb in no time, and God knows if they even have one. In any case, I would have wanted the Americans to have a better opportunity, a better shot to have concluded their negotiations. But once this has started, and the surgical precision of the attacks with a very low count of civilian casualties, I think that all of this needs to be analyzed with a lot of care and a lot of prudence.
Dr. Demirtas, can the assassination of a sitting head of state or supreme leader ever be justified under Article 51 of the UN Charter?
Of course not. We cannot say that this is a preemptive strike, as the Israeli always said. Just from July 12 to 13, they always said that is the preemptive strike. Unfortunately, we heard this term after 2001. With the United States' famous war on terror, famous war on Iraq. Also, please do not forget that in Iraq, we could see only chaos after one, of course, dictator, Saddam Hussein. We just cannot see the end of this chaotic atmosphere in the Middle East. Now, the same terms, this analogy or diplomacy, I mean non-diplomacy, is also conducted against Iran. And of course, the supreme leader, president, prime minister, these terms are all, of course, it can be understood or can be explained with the internal situation of states. If we, first of all, interfere the internal situations of states, then this does mean that we must, of course, also analyze all the systems in the world countries. We can also analyze Mr. Netanyahu's, elections or his election campaign, how he used, of course, all these campaigns, all this military or analogy again against terror to, strengthen his internal power. So the supreme leader of Iran, of course, we can understand that Iran has some important difficulties for years to explain why it may created this nuclear power, as Mr. Ambassador said, that very rapidly, very extensively. But this nuclear issue is the issue for maybe 60 or 70 years of world history. It is not about the issue or maybe the reason for attacks, such attacks. It is must be an important topic of the world diplomacy. If world diplomacy or United Nations system could not find any reasonable explanation to find, for solutions for these middle roads, then we must talk, first of all, change and reform about this international political systems. First of all, with United Nations system, and of course with the nuclear agency. So what Israel did for this maybe 3-4 days is just the opposite of what international law and of course international order implied us since the end of the Second World War. Please do not forget, Israel was also the product of the end of the Second World War.
Ambassador Darishtegi, how might the international community react to such a targeted killing? Could it lead to wider regional war?
Well, let me tell you that the things that we are living today are not at all the same as we had about a year and a half ago. Basically, when the Gaza situation popped up. Now we have a weakened Hamas in the south of Israel. We have a weakened Hezbollah in the north of Israel. Now we have heard yesterday the Lebanese army is disarming Palestinian militias inside the country. The next target is to disarm Hezbollah, most likely. Good luck with that. It's going to be complicated, not easier said than done. And then, of course, there's the implosion of the of the abject Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad, which was the main ally of the Iranian regime in the region. So all of these things make it much more difficult for a generalized regional conflict to erupt. Iran does not have the military capacities today to really trouble the region in a way they could have done a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Their navy is very weak. Their air force is obsolete. We're talking about fighter jets of the 70s or third generation fighter jets at the best case, and their anti-missile defenses and anti-aircraft defenses are the previous generation of Russian defenses. They're S-300, not the S-400, which is the latest model, which is the model that Turkey has, by the way. They have been attacked with cyber attacks and everything. But let's go one step before that. It is not true that Israel has not been attacked by Iran before. It has been attacked by its proxies. It has been attacked by Hezbollah, which is an Iranian proxy. It has been attacked by the Iraqi Shia militias in different parts of the world, including those that were transferred into Syria to participate in the civil war. Their embassy in Buenos Aires was bombed. The Israeli Association also was bombed in Buenos Aires, and there's zillions of others cases around the world of indirect attack of this abominable regime, which is the Iranian regime today. Because of course we're not talking about that. Yes, they're a member of the United Nations. They're a sitting member of the United Nations, but calling things legitimate and legal are different. It might be a legal regime. It is most definitely not a legitimate regime.
So, Mr. Demirtas, what precedent might this set for other conflicts where leaders are directly targeted?
We can say that these targets, especially when we are saying this just in the weekend's time, there are different targets Israel wants to destroy. First of all, of course, the commander maybe bases, the intelligence systems maybe of Iran, and of course the this weapon industry maybe inside this area of Isfahan, Tehran, Tabriz. But the targets, I think, of Iran's also in Israel, maybe situated in these areas, like in these military sections, in intelligence sections, but all these targets can be seen in maybe civilian area. First of all, we must understand that this war can be exacerbated, and this war can go in a negative direction with this civilian casualty. We can first of all see that this Iranian maybe counterattack maybe is not counted by Israeli intelligence and by Israeli military officers that it will be so high in this maybe last 2-3 days, but it is not Hezbollah, it is not Hamas. It is a very, very established state. It is a very important state also, which can go till the inner regions of Central Asia, Anatolia, Middle East, even Pakistan, Hindustan, India. I mean, in all these regions, we can see that this Iranian attack is an effect of thousands of years. Israeli intelligence, Israeli weapon industry, Israeli, all these military commanders, first of all, think that what they really wanted is not about, targeting a paramilitary group or paramilitary secret service. It is about a state, very established state, maybe one or, if you count maybe 4 or 5 important civilizations in the world history still, one will be definitely Iranian civilization. I would not say that this Islamic revolution has an important effect on the region. Yes, after 1980, we just saw that all the balances inside the region changed with the Islamic revolution. But also, please do not forget this Iran-Iraq war. Yes. Maybe this regime is also turned into a very, quote-unquote, radical maybe pole for this Western civilization after these 8 or 9 years of war with Iraq. And after this, we can see another dictatorial regime in Iraq with Saddam Hussein. So all these balances cannot be separated from this historical reality. And the targets now are not about just targets. There are some historical realities. There are important civilian realities inside the region.
So, Ambassador Darishtegui, you have long experience in diplomacy. So what diplomatic off-ramps still exist, if any, to prevent further escalation?
Well, let me just briefly point out, being in complete agreement with the historic perspective that has just been pointed out, doubtlessly Iran, the Iranian people, and the Iranian empires of the past is doubtlessly one of the most important civilizations of the world. But precisely because if that is true, we cannot at all confuse the present regime with all of that. This regime is not Iran. This regime is not the Iranian people. This regime does not represent the history of Iran. The Sassanids, the Safavids, even the Kharijis that were so devastated. And Iran is a country that respects its history. I've been there several times. I even gave conferences in the Ministry of External Affairs. I went to their archives. I know that they're a very serious country and a very serious people. Of course they are. And if you analyze social media and you analyze what is going on in the public opinion inside of Iran, and you see how people are celebrating the deaths of their oppressors, the only thing here is that the Israelis need to very carefully measure that they don't go beyond a certain limit. They must not kill civilians. And right now, I can give you a very precise list of I just made a report for my newsletter, my daily newsletter. The targets that have been attacked by the Israeli Air Force are surgical. They even attacked the bedroom of one of the commanders without affecting the rest of the building. It is quite remarkable, you might say. The response is not the same. Okay, the Israeli civilian defense is much more organized than the Iranian one, and therefore the number of casualties is very low. But the damage in residential areas in Tel Aviv and other cities in Israel is enormous. And I know that it's not popular to say these things, but that is the reality. And even if the 4-phased missile defense system that is improperly called the Iron Dome, that is only one of the 4, it doesn't have a 100% effectiveness, the 4 to 5% not effectiveness that the missiles that go through have damaged cities very seriously. And by the way, the small township that has received the worst attack so far, curiously enough, are Israeli Arabs. And the largest number of deaths by Iranian attacks are Israeli Arabs.
Can I interrupt, Mr. Miller? I'm so sorry. Really, you
Yes.
just talk about this intelligence, very important intelligence of course, Mossad and Israel. How can I explain then 60,000 civilian people just in the name of, finding this Hamas leadership and just, 10 or 20 or 30.
We're talking
of
about
this,
Iran. If you want us to talk about Gaza, we can be
Israeli
much more in
prisoners
agreement.
inside Hamas. I don't understand this very quote-unquote glorious intelligence of Israeli secret services or military, and how can really they are making these victims of 60,000 people in Palestine when they are really having this capability inside another country, as we said, with thousands of years of civilizational history. Yes, this is the 50 years of regime. We can say that we all have very important problems. Of course, just think about Turkey's situation. We just had some very important difficulties and differences in the governmental sectors of Iran, since we are, of course, important neighbor countries, but still, to legitimizing. I really agree with your ambassadorial experience, but such arguments can really give some legitimate grounds to some attacks like after 9/11, because we really want to change this domestic situation in a country, in an Iranian regime now, and just we did in the past, in the very recent past, and it really gave us 30 years of turmoil in the Middle East now. I'm sorry for interruption.
No worries. I just want to tell you two things. First, to respond to your allusion of Gaza. If we speak about Gaza, let's speak about Gaza. I could be probably much more in agreement with you about Gaza than you think. In any case, we're talking about Iran, and when we're talking about Iran, there is no question that we cannot confuse this present regime with the history and the greatness of a people that, in fact, is a millennial, a multi-millennia civilization. Point one. And then I did answer the second part of your question. What chances does diplomacy have? You may like Trump or not. You may be in agreement with him or not. There's a lot of people in outside of the United States that don't like him either. But whenever he speaks, he has a way of probably igniting sentiments. But you cannot deny that he always says, "I am not in the business of war. I am not in the business of starting a war. I'm not in the business of provoking a war or prolonging a war. I'm in the business of ending wars." And he wanted to do that. And he was sitting with the Iranians. They don't even have diplomatic relations with the Iranians. And I have to praise that, by the way. And it is very important to say that he has not given up on the idea of trying to promote some kind of agreement that will make it possible for the Iranians to have a civilian nuclear program that will not imply them having 60% enriched uranium or 90% enriched uranium, because nobody can believe that is for peaceful reasons. It is a lie. They are trying to hide evidence. And the American proposal was very clear. If they accept it, there's no problem anymore. GCPOA was a mistake. We've seen it. It only prolonged the problem. And that is the root of the cause, right? And today, if the Iranians accept that they have to source their enriched uranium from abroad, and that it's strictly monitored by the international community, they will be able to have peace, and they will be able to have a nuclear program. It's as simple as that.
So, Mr. Melitash, what message is President Trump trying to send by urging Tehran's residents to evacuate immediately? Could Trump's remarks be interpreted as signaling imminent military action?
Of course, it's unacceptable. Mr. Trump's diplomacy style. First of all, just when he came to power, I think just in the first months of 2025, we all maybe had some hopes for decreasing these tensions, of course, starting with Russia, Ukraine, then Palestinian and Israeli situation. But now in the Turkish media, I think all over the media in different countries, it is said that instead of decreasing these tensions, there have been very, very different tensions also inside different regions. Of course, this is not because of Mr. Trump's politics. No, it is all with history. Of course, we had very hard 19th century, 20th century, and all these legacies maybe gave us these results. First of all, we must also speak, as Mr. Ambassador said, that in every chance, in every manner, this diplomatic style of solving issues, but just to say, evacuate Iran, evacuate Tehran, evacuate other cities of Iran in just 1-2 days. How can it be possible? Just we saw these same stories. Unfortunately, I really want to give again this Palestinian issue because it's really created maybe one of the important holes, one of the important gaps in this conscience of human history, in this maybe diplomacy of this world politics, because we cannot forget easily these last 2 years. And now suddenly another story, another very hard story started now in a very important historical land again. I really want to say again to Mr. Ambassador, yes, every country can have some regime problem.
Yes.
Every country has some very important democratic problem, especially in such an age of this really postmodern era, which we can know anything in just 10 minutes, 15 minutes with our very digital devices. We can understand that any country has really important gaps in their democratic systems. Even in our countries, we must accept that there are important, also in European, first of all, in far right and rise, we cannot forget about this in-democratic situation. But still, we must come together. It is not about these preemptive strikes anymore. Really, the diplomacy and the world politicians, and of course, as we are the experts, we are full of these stories, We must go, we must attack, because we do not want this undemocratic regimes. This is not also liberalism, because in liberal theology, in liberal also original ideas, one important thing starts always with human and human life.
Ambassador,
I agree with that.
Thanks a lot. Ambassador Gustavo de Aristega and Mr. Melih Demirtas, thank you both for sharing your invaluable insights at this critical and tense moment. We truly appreciate your time and expertise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As tensions between Israel and Iran spiral, the world watches anxiously. Will diplomacy prevail, or are we headed towards a dangerous new chapter in the region's history? We will continue to follow these developments closely. And to our viewers, thank you for watching Context. Stay safe and see you next time.